Hey folks, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be working on a super simple scatter terrain build that should be really easy for anyone to do at home to add a little something to their setting. Hopefully it's super simple. I haven't actually done this before. I got the idea for this while working on my temple build, but I haven't had the chance to try it yet, so we're going to try it together today and just see if it works. Alright, let's jump in. Today I'm going to be trying to make some piles of hay and some difficult terrain to use as scatter. I start with a piece of parchment paper. Now if you're not familiar with it, this is used in cooking and baking. It's super cheap to pick up at the dollar store and almost nothing sticks to it, even glue. Which is what I'm starting with, just a nice patch of basic PVA glue. You might know it as just white glue or school glue. For the difficult terrain patches, I add some aquarium gravel and then just sprinkle whatever aggregates I can find over top. One of them I make out of a bag full of sand that I've had for ages and that I use for just about everything. The other gets a rougher scenery sand that has more pebbles and larger pieces in it. I wasn't really sure what would work at this point, if anything. The idea of using bare glue on parchment was to keep the profile of the scatter thin, so it could just be tossed onto any terrain mat or tile and it wouldn't stand out or need a base. If you've watched my temple videos, then you know where I'm getting my straw or hay piles. These old house painting brushes often come in the large bags of cheap brushes that most of us are using for painting terrain. For my first attempt, I'm just cutting off the bristles and piling them onto some glue, just like I did with the difficult terrain patches. Again, the hope is for something low profile that can go onto any board. I did promise this was fast and easy, right? And while it wasn't part of my original plan, I decided to try a few other things while I'm here too, namely some acid and blood spills. Now these weren't really an important part of the plan to me, but since I had all of this stuff out, I thought I might as well play around a bit. These are really just PVA glue mixed with different colors of paint and left to dry. And once they have dried, it's time to peel them off. Unfortunately, there is an immediate and obvious problem. The moisture in the glue has caused the parchment paper to ripple, and everything, except the hay piles, has dried with those ripples in it. This is kind of a mixed bag. The hay piles are the thing I'm most interested in out of these experiments, and they're also the one that kind of worked. But I'm not really happy with any of the results, especially the acid and blood pools, so while this is interesting and a trick that I'll keep in mind for future projects, I think I can do better. Okay, so the primary build here is really the piles of straw and hay. That's the thing that I was most excited about and the thing that works best in my setting and for my builds. The rough terrain and the blood and acid stuff, those were just kind of experiments I was doing on the side to see if they'd work. And I know I said I was going to keep this really simple, and the hay piles are kind of alright as they are. It's like a dog with a bone, you know? Once I've got a problem, I can't help but try to solve it. That's way more motivating to me than any crafting idea. It's just having a crafting problem that I can fix. I'm pretty sure I can fix this. So, round 2. Alright, for the second go at things, I split the project in two. Everything except the hay piles is getting a base. But to keep the idea of it being extremely low profile, I'm using very, very thin translucent plastic. Now, the best source for this kind of thing is just by reusing commercial packaging. This was actually from a large monster mini that I bought to use as the final fight of my last campaign, but this kind of plastic is available everywhere. And I basically followed the same steps as before. The rough terrain gets both aquarium gravel and some random bits of cork this time, but otherwise it's exactly the same, and the paint and PVA mixture for the blood and acid pools just gets spread to the edge of the pre-cut bases. And for a change of pace, I didn't just do it with my bare hands this time. I'm learning to use tools, like a people. The piles of hay are still going onto parchment paper, but I want them to be a lot bigger, fluffier, and organic looking than before, so I pile all of the brush bristles on top of each other first. Then I use a pipette full of isopropyl alcohol and drip it all over the hay piles. Now this breaks the surface tension of the bristles, which will allow the glue to seep in more effectively. And that's the next step. Watered down PVA glue in a pipette. I thoroughly soak the piles since I want these to be as sturdy as possible, despite being just a loose collection of bristles in reality. And I take the opportunity to add more bristles to the original hay piles this way too, just to see if they can be salvaged. Of course, that much glue has to be left overnight to dry. Alright, I am way happier with the results from round 2. The piles of straw and hay are much bigger, fluffier. These could be put even in the back of a wagon model, or they could be just put in the street and even used as cover on a battle map. I think that would be just fine. They'd also be great props on a farm setting. On top of that, the rough terrain pieces came out much better. They're very sturdy. Yeah, very happy with this as a jumping off point. So I'm going to pop in and just paint these up, see where the project ends up. Oh, one other note actually before I do that. What's interesting to me is that see-through plastic card stuff, that didn't bend, which is really weird. Normally with PVA glue, it pulls in from the sides. That is to say, as the water evaporates while it dries, the glue itself contracts, which is why you get warping. It pulls the edges of projects upward. That didn't happen here. I'm not totally sure why, but I'll take the win where I can get it. That just leaves painting up the difficult terrain patches. They get the simplest paint job imaginable, really. A base coat of black Mod Podge, a layer of dark brown paint, a lighter spot color for the rocks, and 2 successively lighter dry brushes. It doesn't get easier than that, really. Alright, that's it. Here's the finished product. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out for a simple craft project. To knock it out in like one day. I mean, aside from drying time for the glue, this is about 20 minutes worth of work, and if you're just doing the straw or hay piles, which are really what I was after here, then it's even less. This was incredibly simple and just made using stuff that I already had kicking around. I'm sure whatever you've got in your craft room as it is, you can make up some rough terrain, and those old paintbrushes that I used for the hay and straw, those just come in those paintbrush kits that you pick up at the dollar store that you're probably already using for your terrain. So, nothing that's hard to get your hands on or expensive. To me, that makes a perfect small crafting project, and I am super happy with how this one turned out. Alright, thank you for watching, thank you for supporting the channel. Please hit like and subscribe, and if you've got friends that you think would be interested in this kind of content, please point them in this direction. I am trying to grow the channel, and that is one of the biggest things you can do to support me. On the other hand, if you want to support me monetarily, there are links below to do that as well. Thank you guys, I'll see you on the next one.